Good afternoon. I'm Qirjako Qirko. I'm the ambassador of Albania in UK. And today is a special day for me because I have two special guests, my friend Tony and Joel. And especially Tony, which I know him from, let's say, a couple of months. And when I met him for the first time, I felt immediately a lot of positive energy in this person. I didn't know who he was, but after we exchanged some talks, his story was a beautiful dream for everyone who fight to change his life. And Tony is a great example of that. Everybody who would like to change, to follow his dream, have first of all to read his books. I read one of these books, and I saw my son that he spent the whole night reading the second books, and it was the great surprise for me to see that what achievement Tony had during his life, how difficult his life has been at the beginning, but for a hard-working person, for a very dedicated person to follow his dream and to realize his dream, to change his dream into reality, the best example is just to read his story and to follow his lections. So what can I say? Tony, thank you for what you are doing, not only for Albanian community, for, I think, I am not exaggerating, for entire world, because these lessons that you bring us in your books are valid to everyone, because everyone have a difficult moment in his life, and everyone needs some experience, and your experience is really a guide for everyone who would like to achieve his dreams. So I don't want to repeat, but I am really glad and honored to have you here today, and to say thank you, Tony, for your model, for your what you represent, because I think you represent an exceptional model of a person who fought for his dream, and this is something extraordinary. I am proud to have a friend like you, but not myself. I think all the Albanians here in UK, but not only in UK, everybody who knows you, or everybody who didn't know you, but everybody who has read your books, I think is immediately your fan. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you so much for that introduction and for your support. I mean, we are here at the Albanian Embassy, okay, promoting not only the work that we're doing and the documentary Living My Illusion, but also bringing the Albanian people into this, almost taking them with us on a journey. And it was quite a great idea. It all started with one connection. And this is the importance of when you actually meet people, and how if you develop that connection and if you invest a bit of time and saying, okay, why is this connection happening? We're actually sitting here at the Albanian Embassy creating another beautiful connection that other people in the world can follow. So Enio came to my talk at the Asset House, and he saw one of my lectures that I presented in there, which is about really how people can expand and follow their dreams. Whether you're a leader, whether you're somebody coming out of university, or whether it's somebody going through a lot of struggles. So having gone through adversities, that I find it wondrous that I'm still alive. And having gone through tremendous shifts, the kind of clients now I serve are people who are on that journey and they need an expert to bring them. And this is Joel van der Molen in here, who, having gone through the transformation and is still going through that transformation, he felt totally inspired to take this work globally through what he loved most, and that is?
That is through, yes, through production, but it's about the work, as you mentioned, and I feel that as an ambassador for that work, just like yourself being the ambassador for Albania, I'm the ambassador for the methodology that we're working through each session. And I was just truly inspired. It's like when you read the book and you take away those magic moments. But imagine doing that one-to-one. It's a completely unique experience. I do believe that reading a book and attending a talk will get you so far. But having that one-to-one mirror back at you to point out your blind spots, what you're doing well, but what where you know that you can improve, and getting you to that realization is just truly transformational. And I was at a certain point in my life where I knew that things were unbalanced, and if I wasn't going to address them, then I would have had to face the consequences of that being potential disaster. So fortunately for me, I crossed paths with Tony, and then was just truly inspired by what was happening to me. And I thought, wow, this is something that if I'm going through these pains, if I'm going through these thoughts, as you mentioned, every single one of us has life problems, life adversities. How do people deal with that without having that kind of the feedback that I have?
But imagine for a second, like the role of the ambassador. Okay, so would you share like 3 major things you as an ambassador are doing in UK?
Well, first of all, UK is a special friendly country to Albania, because just in very first days of the changes, I mean in 1981, the UK was a great supporter of this change. The UK supported, first of all, the political changes, the new political parties, then the adoption of new standards, democratic standards of living, and then the adoption of rule of law in my country. And then a great supporter of all changes that happen not only in Albania but in all regions. So we are grateful forever to the British soldier for what they have done in Kosovo. And if we have an independent Kosovo, it's thanks to the dedication of the government of UK and the direct contribution of its soldiers. Now UK is one of the main political partners, great supporter of membership of Albania in NATO, and great supporter of all democratic changes we had in Albania. Also, we have Albanian community here in UK, which is increasing, and finally we know everywhere in the world that the first generation of immigrants are sacrificed, let's say, in some manner. But now, after 20-25 years, we have a second and third generation of Albanian here, the second generation, which is now totally involved in British life. We have Albanian in city, we have Albanians professor, doctors in all spheres of life, and we have Tony. This is,
You mentioned something very important, which is actually extremely connected to what I do, what Joel does, and what a lot of my clients are now globally doing with this work, which is change. Okay, and we mentioned in our private conversation about how important change is to go through democratic processes and actually transform the economy, transform the culture, and transform the countries, especially the countries we both come from. I come from Estonia, you come from Albania. But the problems are exactly the same down there. Now, when we actually started this journey with Joel, when we co-created the idea of creating a documentary series about my work for educational purposes globally and to inspire the lives of 1 billion people, the key element is the changes he was going inside of him. Okay, and how essential do you believe that change inside of you has to be in every single human being in Albania, in Macedonia, in Kosovo, and globally?
Well, everybody has changed in the last 25 years in Albania, because we have used to live in such an isolated country. So we were a kind of North Korea of Europe, totally isolated from the rest of the world, no contact with the Western country. And so sometimes even learning foreign languages were really difficult. Yes, after the fall of Berlin Wall, the great changes, we start to recognize and to know each other, because, well, for sure there are borders between neighbors in the Western Balkans, but the most difficult borders are they who are inside our mind. So we are neighbors with Macedonian, with Serbs, but we don't know each other, because there have been created in history this big fences in our mind. So, but now we realize that if we want to develop ourselves, if we want to develop the region, it's much better to work together than to fight with each other. And so this process that is going on from, let's say, the last 10 years have brought great changes in the region. So there are some regional organizations that are doing a great job. There are exchange of young people, especially students from Serbia coming in Albania, students from Albania going to Macedonia, exchanging visit, knowledge, because it's very important, the contact with each other, and to change the bad legacy of the history. Unfortunately, the Western Balkans is created like this. But the most encouraging project is the European Union project. Now, in all countries of the Western Balkans, we have elected democratic government. All the government of the region have the same goal, reaching one day European Union, which means Brussels as our future capital. And to prepare ourselves for this challenge, we are working very closely with each other. But as I mentioned, great changes have been done mentally and psychologically, because the bad legacy of the past is behind us, and we have a common future together.
That's very interesting for me to listen. And the reason is very interesting because everything you shared, it's what Joel was going through, okay? So you mentioned one of the things, isolation, okay? And you also mentioned the borders and how to break those borders. And you mentioned the incident of Berlin Wall, which brought tears into my eyes, and I think it brought tears to millions of people. But yet, now we're going through segregation again. And the hashtag loneliness is actually addressing all of those issues that you're mentioning. How the mind, when it's segregated and when it's isolated, cannot see beyond what is possible. Now, living my illusion that Joel felt stuck because I helped him, first of all, to bring him to the awareness of his own isolation. Because that's the key. If we're going to have to change the world, and if we're going to contribute of creating shifts in the society that for those democratic processes to be smooth, we have to start with understanding the human awareness, human consciousness, and human behavior of every human individual. So, Joel, could you share with us and with the ambassador the importance of, first of all, seeing that isolation and that loneliness you experience, and what were the effects in your business, in your personal life, and in your health? And then how through this journey, especially when you started reading A Path to Wisdom and following the steps and going deeper with me into the processes, how you started to break free those walls and implementing exactly that, the democratic processes in your life that led to actually being here and creating Living My Illusion, which will be a documentary series tackling different areas of life, things exactly what you mentioned.
It's something that I was not aware that I was going through. You mentioned the changes that are happening within people, the transformations that are happening. But if you're not aware of what is happening to you, because we're not aware of what loneliness is or what a midlife crisis is. These are things I thought were for other people to have. And going through in each session what I was feeling and the way I saw the world, it just truly helped me with a unique set of questioning, understand who I am and start the inner revelations that create the outer situations that we collectively seek. By doing that work inside of me, I become better. I fill voids. I become the inspiration for others to do the same. It's not pointing outwardly and saying, okay, the problem is outside, but looking back and saying, okay, what can I do differently? Where am I going wrong? What can I do better? How can I improve? That inner work was just so spellbinding for me that it led to me at a time of either, continuing on what I was doing unaware and unconscious of the same patterns that I had been going through as a child, the same injected ideas and beliefs that I was carrying with me through my life. And it's like we come into this world and we're carrying 2 big bags of rubbish, and then we go through the school system and we put on this big backpack and we're just weighted down with the pressures of the world, and then that's topped up with other people's expectations and fulfilling their dreams, and we become people pleasers. We want to do things outside of us, we want to please and make other people happy, but it's about us. It's all about that inner journey. And what I was discovering, I was so truly inspired, because if I have these thoughts and I'm going through these pains and these troubles, then hundreds of millions of people globally are suffering in silence.
So, what would you say one thing? This is going to be now not about my 2 ambassadors next to me, but it'll be about me as an Albanian person. What kind of values or traits you saw in me that made you the decision to work with an expert with my background? Okay, because basically for most people out there, they think Albania is something tiny, small. And I've had this question on American TV saying, how is it possible for a thought leader like yourself to emerge from a place where we don't even know about? So what was it for you? What kind of qualities you see in Albanian people? Okay, and I've introduced you to a lot of wonderful Albanian people.
I have. I've been very fortunate, and meeting a lot of Albanians. For me, I look at it when I do through the eyes of a child, and through the eyes of that child, it doesn't matter where you're from, what you look like, how you dress, how you speak, because they're all, as you say, labels that we give to other people. What I truly connected with was you, was as you said, the aura, the presence that he brings. When you know that you are with someone who's truly special and that you just feel free to be around, and that doesn't matter who that person is or necessarily what language they're speaking even, but you have a connection. I've connected with many people from all different nationalities and all different languages, and even not speaking the same language, you can feel that connection. But this is someone that I felt inside of me, my internal intelligence system that we all have, just click and go, yes, this is somebody that I need to work with. That didn't necessarily come from, where it stemmed because you're Albanian and I love Albanian people and, then I have to work with them. It didn't really come into the picture. And I do believe it's the same whenever you feel drawn towards somebody, and that may be a famous person or someone in music. You're drawn towards the music. You don't look at the person, and then say, oh, but no, I don't like their music now because they're from here. It was that true, instant connection that I knew.
It brings to awareness another topic, that basically, no matter where you come from, an educated mind can make a difference. Now, what I pick up from him and from your role as an ambassador, and also coming from a civil war situation, and we both experienced it in our own different ways, me being in the former Yugoslav army as a teenager, going through that and being forced against my own will to fight against the people I love, the country we built, the freedom we had, and suddenly it's a total chaos. So for me, as a thought leader and expert in human behavior, I understand how that war we have inside of ourselves collectively then represents the war we all experienced. And when I met Joel, I saw that war inside of him. Now, Albania, Macedonia, Kosovo, Montenegro, Serbia, and all those places, we are surrounded. First World War, Second World War, then we have the Civil War, then we saw the collapse of the regime. Now, wouldn't you agree that there are so many, I would say, wounds that these people need to heal before those amazing democratic processes can actually maximize what's possible for these people?
Well, as I mentioned before, the most magnetic process is European Union integration. And there is a tremendous increase of bilateral relations. So something that 10 years ago or 15 years ago was unbelievable. So our citizens now can move freely from Albania to Montenegro, to Serbia, to Kosovo, without visa, without borders, without nothing. So that's important. On the other hand, there is a positive feeling of the politicians of our countries that only working together we can build a common future for our country and for our people. That's important. And each of our leaders is doing the utmost. Of course, we have a problem. History is behind us. Sometimes we're reminded. But in general, we are focusing on future. So future is our perspective. We are working for this future, and we are optimistic that, I mean, in 10 years' time, I mean, all the Western Balkan countries will be like the rest of the European Union, and probably will join European Union, our common family. Well, as a British, I know.
This is the, on one hand, we're seeing this amazing development where people want to go beyond borders, but then as we experienced a year ago in Britain, we're actually closing down our borders, and this is alarming for me, okay? Not just because of everything you mentioned, but it's also alarming if I were to take that inside of myself, okay? Because suddenly I'm free to move, to live, to love, to integrate in 27 European countries, and suddenly somebody makes a choice that freedom to disappear from a fear or from an idea, and there's no facts, real facts. Those people made the decision that Europe is the problem.
Well, in the position of the ambassador, I don't want to make a comment, because at the end it is a decision of people of UK for Brexit. But well, I'm sure with the new opportunity, Britain and European Union will cooperate very strongly together, because there is a tradition, there is history behind. And after the negotiation, they will find the ways to cooperate with each other. I'm sure about that.
Yeah. How important do you think the issues that I mentioned in #loneliness and a path to wisdom? In #loneliness is really, I'm talking about different levels of problems that humanity and individual people experience for those transformations to be successful.
Well, as I mentioned, #loneliness, that was a good example for all Albanians, because it's exactly what our country felt in the beginning of 90s, and what success you achieved in your life were more or less the success that this isolated, poor country achieved in 25 years. So, for example, Albania is totally changed right now. The number of tourists is increasing every day. Last year we have 65,000 British tourists visited my country, and this year for sure will be much more. So, these two books I really appreciate very much, because there are, I don't exaggerate if I say they are a kind of Bible for everyone, for every individual which would like to change his life. And you know, the society is done by individual. If each of the individual that make the society will have the idea, will have the right idea, and will have the right guidance, good things could be in the interest of society, and maybe, why not, of the world.
Yeah, it's one of the things which, I mean, when I looked at Joel, for instance, and when we talk about the partnership we've co-created, okay? He comes from a British background and a successful entrepreneur, and me coming from Macedonia as an Albanian successful entrepreneur and author and thought leader. And how important is that for basically create those cross partnerships where basically, like, you know, we have culture, we have here a British man investing in my business that goes globally. How important are those relationships to continue, and how important is other Albanian people, businessmen, to be able to take this work and take it globally?
Well, the word is nice because there are different culture, different education, well, positive value at the end. So I think that people need to cooperate. I am a fan of people who build bridges, not walls. That's why I appreciate, because even these two books are bridges to enter inside the human mind, the human body, and how to develop yourself.
You've just mentioned the words of my father. Okay, my father was building bridges, and he inspired me to be a bridge for peace. And Joel's father, Rodney, he also reminds me of my father, because he's got tremendous wisdom and knowledge, and they do believe, like all three of us in here, the importance of creating bridges, because it's very easy. One thought can destroy a bridge that it's taken you years to build. And this is what inspires me day and night to really write more and create more products. And we're going to be filming more on the Living My Illusion documentary series to really bring the awareness of how important it is to be self-aware in yourself, the kind of thoughts, the kind of beliefs, the kind of values you hold, and what kind of words do you share with one human being. Is it a word that inspires you within, or is it a word that can destroy everything you may have worked all your life to create? So how important is that for you, Joel, as well? I mean, this is about really building bridges, because I've helped you build many bridges in your life, in your business, with your customers, in the way you communicate with your customers, the way you attract your customers, the way you do business with them. But then also when you experience something very traumatic in his own life, where his relationship was collapsing, and rebuilding those bridges when the relationship is collapsing. For most men out there in the world who are in the family life, a lot of them end up being, I would say, remaining in the relationship, but they become abusive. And I'm not sure if you agree with me or not, but I've seen it in our Albanian culture, how violence is in everyday life, where people in a relationship are extremely violent, whether it's violent mentally, emotionally, or physically. So the abuse that happens in the family is a result of people feeling stuck with one another instead of actually finding a common language and a solution. And this is what some of my work with a lot of successful people is, when they come through those personal challenges that impact everything about themselves. So for you, how important it was for you to do this work, to really create another bridge, or rebuild the bridge and actually being able to cross into transition into a new life or new experience of life?
We're talking about bridges, and it is about, you know, strengthening that bridge and rebuilding that bridge and maintaining that bridge. And without that, without crossing paths with you at such a unique time in my life, I don't know where I would have been. And as I said before, without that kind of expert guide, that feedback to you about you, how do people do it? How? Because, you know, we come out of schools and universities, and we come out into this big wide world, not necessarily prepared for anything that life is going to throw our way. Learning those life skills is what will prepare anybody for any situation. When you talk about this being being an integral part of education, it's essential. When you talk about co-creating work with all types of nationalities to bring the intrinsic philosophies on a global scale, that is of major importance, and that's what we do, and that's why I am so inspired, because the mission of reaching 1 billion people, 20 million of them Albanians, of course, is a huge task. But when people truly know within their heart of hearts what is true to them, and when they hear Tony, and when they speak with him or get the chance to meet him, they understand where they are. And every single day, that's what gets me up early and keeps me up late, because I know that the work that I'm a part of is a true inspiration, that it is now, in this world, where we are having the young generation. They're called the millennial generation, and I consider myself potentially the oldest of these millennials. there's an awakening happening, and people have a thirst for knowledge and wisdom like never before. And you can see it in their eyes. You can see it in the eyes of every human being, whether they are serving you coffee, whether they are working with you in a shop. Everyone connects on a human level. Once you break down those kind of robotic barriers, even when you're speaking to people in the bank, they're kind of like, hello sir, how can I help you today? I'm like, well, you know, you could turn the sun down a bit, because it's very hot in the UK right now. But you sort of get onto that friendly level, and people are people, and people crave this authenticity and the truth. And that's what I love to bring and work with Tony, no matter where we are, what country we are in the world, to help people access the truth and start the journey to create the change that they want to see in the world. And it's just truly magnificent, and I love speaking to people who are on that page. Which page? What page am I on?
The page of life. One final word, what do you have for the world, especially for people who are interested in #loneliness and the messages behind #loneliness or path to wisdom, for people who are in the roles like yourself, ambassadors, for the leaders out there who are dealing with scenarios and situations that are extremely challenging. So literally for humanity, what would you like to share as final words?
Well, I think that each of us needs a model in its life. So when we are a child, our parents are our, heroes. They know everything, they teach us everything, they give us immense love, which is very important, especially in our day, to give love. And then there are our teachers who guide us, who teach us, who prepare us for the future. And then there is a third stage, let's say, when you have we have finished our education and we are ready to work. But even after all this preparation, we need some guides, someone to guide, to someone who can teach us, and someone who can enter inside us and find what value we have and how we can use our positive energy to build our future. And the answer of these questions that I raised here, we can find it to books. I suggest to anyone to read these books, and everyone will feel much better than before, and will try to find the positive energy which is in everybody.
One of the person that we all love and share in our Albanian culture, I actually mentioned in #loneliness, and it's Mother Teresa. And I took the permission of the Mother Teresa Foundation to be able to use one of her quotes. And in my research of actually tackling global problems, of how isolated we have become and how to break those barriers cross culture, cross communities, cross countries, and globally to create that common vision, I got inspired knowing the work Mother Teresa does. Would you share a few words about that as well? Which is specifically about loneliness. And I mentioned the quote in there when Mother Teresa visited America, and when she came out of America, what she thought of America.
Well, we as Albanians, wherever we live, we are proud to have this personality like Mother Teresa, which have dedicated our entire life to the poor people, to the people who were in need. So it was a great sacrifice of a human being living for the other, dedicated its life to people, the most poorest people in Calcutta. And that's why all over the world she was and she is so appreciated for what she did. But I think her Albanian origin, her tradition, he was grown up in Albanian family with strong Albanian tradition, and first of all love for each other, support to each other. It's some values that still are inside the Albanian conscious Albanian society. Yeah, there are real values.
Thank you so much for the honor and for having us in here. And
thank you. I look forward to visiting Albania. First
You're
class.
very much welcome.
yes.
Thank you.
And you will see why Tony is like that. Because
Yeah.
it's a matter of tradition and it's a matter of culture. And so when you will visit Albania or the places that Albania used to live in, you will see that why Tony is like that. You will find the answer.
Learning more.